Spring Television, ours it is.
Here are the top stories of the news. Police confirms the decapitation of an assistant superintendent of police in Abia State. APC National Working Committee fails to zone the leadership race of the 10th National Assembly. On the foreign scene, Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky accuses Russian forces of committing 6,139 war crimes in April alone. Good afternoon and welcome to Spring News at 12 on Western Spring Television. My name is Evelyn Ohiola. We'll begin with security. The Abia State Police Command confirmed the decapitation of an assistant superintendent of police in Abia on Tuesday. According to the state public relations officer Jeffrey Ogbonna, the act was dastardly and highly condemnable. He called for credible information on the perpetrators or anyone found with a firearm suspected to be unlawfully obtained. He further stated that the protection of identity of the informants is assured. Hoodlums on Tuesday beheaded the ASP in Aba in retaliation for their kingpin that was gunned down by the police on Sunday and further threatened no rest for the residents and the police in the city. Now to politics. The National Working Committee of the All Progressives Congress APC failed to take a decision on the zoning of the state Senate presidency and speakership of the 10th National Assembly during its meeting in Abuja yesterday. The national chairman of the APC, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, disclosed that the NWC could not take a position on the zoning arrangement without the input of the president-elect Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, who was away in Port Harcourt. The 4-hour meeting, which started at about 1 p.m., was presided by Senator Adamu, with no fewer than 18 of the 24-member NWC in attendance. The party was expected to later rest the speculations about the zone that would produce the principal officers of the 10th National Assembly. Addressing newsmen after the end of the meeting, the chairman disclosed that they had a meaningful deliberation that further connotes that the party leadership remains more formidable and united. Similarly, the majority leader of the House of Representatives, Al-Hassan Dagua, yesterday argued that his murder trial would not stop him from becoming speaker. The lawmaker, who is currently facing charges of criminal conspiracy, culpable homicide, unlawful possession of a firearm, mischief and public disturbance, made this known while formally declaring his ambition to become the Speaker of the 10th National Assembly. The lawmaker hit back at his critics, noting that according to the Nigerian law, he is innocent until otherwise proven. He also dismissed claims that he lacks the temperament to be the Speaker of the Green Chamber, saying those trying to portray him in bad light probably misconstrued his attitude. Mr. Dagua has been accused of shooting to death and injuring others during the raid on the NNPP Todunwada office during the 2023 general election.
My dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Nigerians, it is therefore I have no greater official honor for me than to stand today here before you, ladies and gentlemen, Nigerians, and declare my intention to serve as next Speaker of the House of Representatives in the 10th National Assembly, and I so declare.
Here in Osun State, the People's Democratic Party PDP yesterday held its state congress where a new set of state executives were elected. At the exercise held at the Osogbo City Stadium, the Aswell State Chairman Sunday BC and 38 others were presented for different posts and were elected unopposed. Also during the exercise, 3 delegates elected in each of the 332 wards in the state voted for all 39 aspirants cleared to participate in the Congress. Addressing the gathering, the Osun State Governor Ademola Adeleke called on members of the party to support the new executives. The governor called on party members to unite behind the new executives elected and to hold the banner of love high, adding that unity is key. Earlier, the Congress chairman Samuel Omotosho urged members to exercise their rights and peace in the interest of the party and to ensure unity within the PDP. Elsewhere, the Labour Party has disowned the purported National Executive Council NEC meeting held in Bauchi State, describing it as illegal. The Labour Party stated this during an expanded meeting it held with the party's 36th state chairman at the National Secretariat in Abuja. Addressing journalists, the LP acting National Publicity Secretary Obiora Ifo said the Apepa-led faction has been sponsored by some governors from other political parties to destabilize the party. As said upon the directives from their paymasters, about 6 of the party's suspended members of the National Working Committee are meeting in Bauchi for a fake and unlawful National Executive Council. In Abia, the leadership crisis rocking the State House of Assembly took a different dimension yesterday as 2 factions of the House sat at 2 different locations in Umuahia, the state capital. It should be recalled that some members of the State Assembly sat at an undisclosed location and purportedly impeached the Speaker, Chinedu Orji, on Tuesday. But in a swift reaction, the embattled Speaker convened a plenary session of the House at the Assembly complex and suspended 9 members of the House who were seen in a viral video of the purported session. Mr. Orji had called on the security agencies guarding the Assembly complex to deny the suspended members access to the facility. But the faction of the House, led by Chukwudi Apugo, who was elected as the new Speaker, held another plenary yesterday where it purportedly suspended Mr. Orji, the majority leader, Solomon Akpulonu, alongside 6 other members. In the meantime, the Lagos State government says it has inaugurated a 22-member inauguration committee for the swearing-in ceremony of Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu and the Deputy, Dr. Kadri Hamzat. The Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Gbenga Omotosho, made this known in a statement stating that the committee would coordinate the activities for the May 29 swearing-in ceremony. Mr. Omotosho noted that the Chief of Staff to the Governor, Tayo Ayinde, was inaugurated as the chairman of the committee, while a former Commissioner for Education in Lagos State, Zaidat Oladunjoye, as the vice chairman. It said the members of the committee would serve in various subcommittees that would organize the inauguration. In Rivers, President-elect Bola Tinubu has disclosed why he cannot fulfill the demands of the Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike for the refund of the 80 billion naira used for the infrastructural development of federal roads in the state. Tinubu, during a banquet in his honor last night, revisited what he called the banter with Wike, noting it has generated a lot of reactions on social media. The former governor of Lagos State dared social media critics to continue saying whatever they like online, stressing it is a free speech society. Given reason for telling the governor that he would not refund the cost of the flyovers he constructed in the state, Tinubu said he cannot make any commitment until he is sworn in as the president.
Let's not respond to banters. Governance is a serious business.
Yes.
And Nigeria is a serious project. We shall all be together to fulfill promises.
To Health Matters, the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors, NARD, has reiterated its stance on its demands from the federal government and restated its threat to go on strike if the demands are not met. The doctors are demanding an immediate increase in the consolidated medical salary structure to the tune of 200% of the current gross salaries of doctors, amongst others. Speaking with newsmen yesterday, the president of NARD, Dr. Emeka Orji, said there had been no counteroffer made by the government to the doctors' demands. Dr. Orji said the ultimatum is running and the association is hoping that the government will step in before the end of the week. Moving on, the Air Peace flight carrying over 270 Nigerian students from the Aswan Airport in Egypt has landed at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja. The NAF C-1308 jet, also conveying about 80 persons, also touched down moments later after over a week of assurances by the federal government. The Nigerian evacuees are finally airlifted home, escaping the deadly conflict in Sudan. The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management, Sadiya Farouk, the Chairman of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, Abike Dabiri Erewa, and the Director General of NEMA, Ahmed Mustafa, were at the airport to receive the students. Since April 15, Sudan has been plunged into armed conflict, with clashes between rival factions of the North African nation's military government breaking out in western Sudan and the capital city of Khartoum and in the Darfur region.
Oganema, come on, abeg. Abeg, leave that side. You reach your job, abeg. Don't be here, go support stage.
You're watching Spring News at 12 on Western Spring Television. We will be right back after this break.
The British Empire was the largest and the most powerful in the world. At its zenith, the empire embraced a quarter of the Earth's land surface and imposed her imperial majesty's rule on more than 458 million peoples across nations and continents. The empire took off with overseas possessions and trading posts established by England, spread over 3 million kilometers between 16th and early 18th century. Like previous empires, the British Empire began to crumble on its weight of overstretched territories and growing unrest in our various colonies. Today, the British Empire no longer exists. What is in place is the Commonwealth of Nations, a loose association of sovereign states which recognize the King of England as the titular head. Western Spring Television identifies the British Empire as a watershed empire in history. This iconic African presents the narrative of a man destined to exert an imperishable global influence in Western education. His was a story of a freeborn, captured and sold into slavery. He was born in Oshogun, a native Yoruba village near Iseyin in Okeogun axis of southwest Nigeria. Samuel Ajayi Crowther was the foundation student of Fora Bay College, Sierra Leone, the foremost university where the pioneer set of native Africans were educated. Samuel Ajayi Crowther's greatest contribution to humanity was his translation of the Holy Bible into the Yoruba language. The man who authored the Yoruba dictionary was also credited for the translation of English classic hymns into Yoruba and the Ekwere languages. Samuel Ajayi Crowther's private residence in Badagry, incidentally the first story building in Nigeria, is an Akaba museum dedicated to the memory of Africa's first Bishop. Western Spring Television identifies Samuel Ajayi Crowther as a watershed character in history.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us on News at 12 on Western Spring Television. Following a motion by the Senate directing the government to halt the demolition of offices belonging to agencies doing aviation activities at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos, the federal government has announced that it cannot be stopped from giving development to the people. The Minister of Aviation, Hadi Sirika, disclosed this yesterday during a briefing after the Federal Executive Council presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari at the State House in Abuja. Mr. Sirika, who believes the Senate is simply an advisory council and cannot drag issues with the government, says they have a reason for overheating the issue. Senator Biodun Olujimi, who chairs the Senate Committee on Aviation, had hours earlier drawn the attention of the upper legislative chamber to the warning strike threatened by the various air workers' unions due to the work. Talking business, the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Issa Pantami, has asked telecommunication firms and other stakeholders in the sector to ignore any attempt to impose a 5% excess duty on telecom services. According to the minister, the sector has been excluded from excise duty tax with approval from President Muhammadu Buhari, which was announced on the 21st of March 2023. The minister spoke on the heels of a report indicating that the federal government is set to proceed with the implementation of a 5% excise duty tax on mobile telephone services, fixed telephone and internet services, despite announcing an earlier exemption. However, the minister, in a statement by spokesperson Mrs. Uwa Sulaiman, stated that the president's exemption of the digital economy sector from excise duty tax remains. Outside Nigeria, India and Russia have suspended efforts to settle bilateral trade in rupees after months of negotiations failed to convince Moscow to keep rupees in its coffers. Two Indian government officials with direct knowledge of the matter confirmed the development. This would be a major setback for Indian importers of cheap oil and coal from Russia, who were awaiting a permanent rupee payment mechanism to help lower currency conversion costs. With a high trade gap in favor of Russia, Moscow believes it will end up with an annual rupee surplus of over $40 billion if such a mechanism is worked out, and feels rupee accumulation as not desirable. Still in business, the end of a market-punishing rate hiking cycle may be in sight, but uncertainty over stock valuations and the economic outlook is keeping investors on alert for more turbulence ahead. The Federal Reserve yesterday signaled it may pause interest rate increases after raising rates by 500 basis points over the last 14 months to fight inflation in its most aggressive monetary policy tightening since the 1980s. In theory, the news should be welcomed for stocks and other so-called risk assets, which wilted under the barrage of hikes last year. Yet some investors worry this year's 6.5% rebound in the S&P 500 has made equities expensive. Stocks fell yesterday, with the S&P 500 ending down 0.7% after the Fed's latest policy decision, in which the central bank also raised rates by 25 basis points as markets expected. On the foreign scene, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Russian forces of committing some 6,139 war crimes in April alone. Mr. Zelensky made this known in his address to the International Criminal Court in The Hague, noting that the crimes have led to the deaths of 207 Ukrainian civilians, including 11 children. It calls for the creation of a war tribunal which must transform the experience of the Nuremberg process. Mr. Zelensky, in his address for the call for freedom, justice and peace to be respected. Russia has previously denied carrying out such atrocities during the course of the war.
Please think about one number. Now, this number is 6,139. This is the contradic number of war crimes committed by the Russian occupiers this April alone. These Russian crimes led to the deaths of 207 Ukrainian civilians. Among them are 11 children. Another 17 children and 400 adults were injured in a month alone. And the full-scale Russian invasion has been going on for the 15th month. Just yesterday, it was yesterday, in our Kherson region alone, Russia killed 23 people. 49 were wounded. I'm speaking about civilians. And it all started more than 9 years ago with the occupation of our land, with the occupation of Crimea and Russia's bloody hybrid war in the Donbass. Thousands and thousands of war crimes, thousands and thousands of victims. The Russian rocket that killed 23 people in the city of Uman, and each of the millions of strikes fired by Russian artillery in the Donbass. Every person killed by the occupiers in Bucha, and every filtration camp that Russia set up on our independent land. Every prisoner who was tortured in the Russian captivity, and every city deliberately burned by Russia, and all the pain suffered by the Dutch people after the downing of MH17 flight with the use of the Russian weapons by the Russian hands.
In Africa, fierce fighting is continuing in Khartoum, the Sudanese capital, as the army tries to push back the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, RSF, from around the presidential palace and army headquarters, in spite of a supposed 7-day ceasefire. Heavy bombardments were also reported this morning in Khartoum's sister city of Omdurman. Sudanese reports on Tuesday said 550 people had died and 4,926 people wounded so far in conflict. The sides appear to be battling for territory in the capital before any possible negotiation, though the two leaders have shown little willingness to hold talks. Outside Africa, the Israeli army has killed at least 3 Palestinians and wounded 4 others while firing live ammunition during a raid in the northern city of Nablus. The Palestinian Ministry of Health confirmed 3 Palestinians were killed by Israeli forces this morning. The Israeli Army and Intelligence Service said in a statement that 2 of the men killed were behind the shooting on April 7 north of Jericho. Political factions in Nablus announced a general strike in the city today in response to the attack. Now to some sports stories. Manchester City striker Erling Haaland has broken the record for most goals in a Premier League season. The Norwegian scored his 35th league goal of the campaign against West Ham to move past Alan Shearer and Andrew Cole's previous best of 34. Haaland had already set a record for a 38-game season, beating Mohamed Salah's 32 goals for Liverpool in 2017-2018. The 22-year-old has another 5 games to add to his tally. Manchester City boss Pep Guardiola describes Erling Haaland as a special player after he broke the scoring record.
I think he deserved it. All the team deserved it, because without the team he could not do it, but he's a special striker. And so, yeah, we are very pleased for him, because he's a joy to not just to work with him or be a manager. I think everyone is happy to have him with us, and of course this record will be broken sooner or later, maybe for him in the future or maybe another one, but he had to score a lot of goals because he scored a lot.
Staying with football, Jurgen Klopp has played down Liverpool's chances of qualifying for next season's Champions League as not realistic despite a fifth straight win. The informed Reds, who only have 4 matches left, move 4 points behind fourth-placed Manchester United after Mohamed Salah's penalty sunk Fulham at Anfield. However, United have 2 games in hand on fifth-placed Liverpool, including one at 8th-placed Brighton tonight. He said at the moment he was happy with the direction of the club, and in the end they will look at the table and take what they can get. Klopp, speaking on his front 3 combination of Nunes, Salah and Diaz, said they did play very well.
Yeah, I thought that, well, we should not forget, you can see with Luis that after 30 minutes, stuff like this, you can see it's really tough for him. It's tough for everybody. We play a lot of games, and we had a discussion with the coaches. Is it who shall we rest? Is it Cody? Is it because Diogo couldn't train again? So I hope tonight. I think in the first situation he's on the pitch. I think the first one is again knocking it back. I hope that's now better because he has a proper bruise at the ribs. Yeah, so it's really painful. Everybody had that before, knows that. Shall he start? Cody, how do we do it? And that was the outcome, this lineup. And I thought he did for long spells really well. How I said, Darwin, like a racehorse, really motivated, really on fire. Yeah. And that's important to us and all of them. When Diogo and Cody came on, they were really in the defense. We were extremely involved, and we had then a few sensational situations where the last pass.
Now, before we end the news, here is a recap of our top stories. Abia State Police Command confirmed the decapitation of an assistant superintendent of police in Aba on Tuesday. The National Working Committee of the All Progressives Congress APC failed to take a decision on the zoning of the Senate presidency and speakership of the 10th National Assembly during its meeting in Abuja yesterday. On the foreign scene, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Russian forces of committing some 6,139 war crimes in April alone. You can follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. That ends Spring News at 12. I am Evelyn Ohiole. Many thanks for your time.